Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Full Metal Cast. Sorry I skipped a week. Last week, my back, I'm actually dealing with a bulging disc. How it happened, bit of a crapshoot, but my theory goes a little something like this. I was puking and shitting my guts out for like 48 hours one weekend, probably last month, maybe a month and a week ago. I do think I irritated it or threw it out or did something to my lower back while I was over the toilet for so long, retching. Then for the next 72 hours while I was recovering, I had a lot of aches and pains up and down my legs, sort of like sciatica pain, as well as pain in my back. It didn't really feel like what I'm feeling now. But in order to be comfortable, I had to lay and sit in some really awkward positions that I don't usually sit in. So that probably further irritated it. Then immediately after the 72-hour period, I decided to jump on a couple of flights to Colorado and go snowboarding for a week, which definitely sent it over the edge and totally fucked it. So I have a bulging disc in my lower back. It's one of the discs right above my hip, actually, my sacrum. So that really sucks. Sitting's an absolute pain in the ass, no pun intended. Bending over, hinging at the waist, lifting over the head, all of that is just unbearable. However, today is the best day I felt in a long time, I will feel. And a little life advice. I'm a tall human being. Actually, take my headphones off here. I'm a tall human being. So my posture and just my bones deteriorate and will deteriorate faster than the shorter. We're like big dogs. We're just going to die sooner. It's just biology. Um, my posture while sitting particularly sucks dick. In the car, at work, I've noticed that I am sitting not so much on my ass. I'm sitting more so on my upper hips, sort of slouching in my chair, and that has caused. I'm not saying this is the root cause of my disc issues, but it's not. It's irritating it and making it worse. It is sort of pulling my lower back. It's sort of stretching it, not in a bad way, uh, over time, doing it every day, all day. And I think that is letting the disc slip, or it's just irritating it further because as I catch myself in that position, just sort of sitting on my upper hip with my back making sort of that C or that U shape in my chair, that is when it hurts the most. So if you find yourself doing that, fix it. Sit on your ass like it's designed for, straight. Don't look like a shrimp in front of your computer. And hopefully that could be your health advice for the day. But some updates, big updates. The site is live with new merch. And right off the rip, day one, it has been a huge hit. The jerseys are selling like hotcakes, which I'm very happy about. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to do these jerseys for obvious reasons. Once you look at them, I'm expecting a cease and desist letter in the mail any day now. So we may get lucky with a few more runs of something like these, or maybe we'll redo these exactly. But this isn't going to last forever. I'm well aware of, but they are funny as shit. Um, so pick those up again. Those are pre-order. I have Death Banner patches, few still left in each sizes. That's a very cool patch. I love that design. I'm thinking about actually getting that white rose tattooed somewhere. I like it because, again, the pillars of this show, which I haven't really revisited in a while, but pillar number one is Memento Mori, using death to sort of keep things in your life in perspective. And so using the white rose from the black banner that death holds in the Death Tarot card is sort of a neat callback to that in my mind. So got a few patches left. Again, some in the larger identifiers that fit that top Velcro Molly Field on a plate carrier, and other chest rigs and whatnot, and your standard morale patch sizes. There is one sling left as well. We had someone coming in by two, so thank you to that individual. One sling left, and then everything else for sale too, on the site. All of it goes towards the Benchmade giveaway that'll end on April 30th. That's when the pre-order for jerseys is going to close. And then again, every $5 spent based on your order total, so that's going to include taxes and shipping that you pay, because paying those things absolutely suck, and you should be rewarded for doing so. And then we'll give away the Benchmade on April 1st. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to talk about today. One thing did come up though, and I'm gonna let it run because it's a trend that it's almost like a law of physics, if you will. And the observation I made was people who speak in absolutes or preach dogmas and really push that out are typically the people with the least amount of knowledge, wisdom, and experience. These are people who want to exhibit and enforce control and really make sure that they are not questioned and their position in whatever sphere, society isn't threatened. An example of this, immediately in our own sphere, we see, grifters and social media influencers and in the gun sphere constantly saying you should never conduct CQB this way. You should never set up your rifle this way. You should only always use this manufacturer. You should only always build your grip like this. You should only always use this ammunition, etc., etc. And another thing, I guess another pillar I can call back to, beware the frailty of man, in that nothing is ever really black and white in life. It's really a mix of gray, and rarely are never and always used or applicable. Now, I can get on board with, one example of never and always being used, that you should never use Amazon and Chinese parts on life-saving and life-taking equipment. I agree with that. Not a question. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about areas or fields, rather, where there is a very large array of options, valid options that have been proven successful, but particular individuals, influencers, people of power, will come across saying that I like this one the most, usually due to financial incentive. Therefore, you should only ever use this, and you should never use anything else. Outside of the sphere, we see this with politicians mostly, and this is my favorite one because I always preach and have always preached that these people are not the most qualified to do anything that they're doing. I don't think he is anymore, but like, for example, last administration, and I'm using last administration because I have no idea who the current head is in this role, but the climate secretary was like John Kerry or something. The housing secretary, last time Trump was in office, I think was Ben Carson, the doctor. I don't know, but like, I'm using these as examples of like, these people don't have the experience to, again, manage a McDonald's across the street from your house, let alone tell you and direct the country in a direction as relates to housing, as relates to health, et cetera, et cetera. And yet they easily and happily and willingly go in front of a mic and tell you how you're supposed to live your life in their image, essentially. They will go on and say, and again, we'll use the example of COVID. And I know it has been used time and time again. I will continue to beat the horse because I don't care. We lived through a historic event, an infamous historical event, a very, very dark time that we are still feeling the effects of today, by the way. So yes, I will continue to use that example because I think it's incredibly relevant despite the political and social sort of moaning and groaning that happens whenever anyone sort of brings it up anymore, because people just want to forget about it. However, it's a huge moment in history. A lot of things happened then, and a lot of things changed because of it, mostly for the worse. So I'm going to continue to use it. But again, the people who went on TV, the people who were in positions of power, told you the only way forward was to put a mask on, to social distance, and to jab your arm with this thing, because those were the only things to do. There's nothing else you can possibly do. This is the only way forward to let society heal and to return to normal. That amazing phrase that got used again and again. But again, none of these people had any experience in the medical field, in the pharmaceutical field, in the vaccination field. They had no idea how any of these things were going to play out. Lockdowns, being one of the greatest examples as well, did infinitely more harm than they did help. And then it came out in a hearing that Fauci just made up the lockdowns being useful, made up the social distancing being useful, made up the mask mandates being useful. And now all of the vaccine manufacturers from the COVID era are now coming out and they're being forced to list the known side effects and recorded side effects of this vaccine as it becomes proven less and less useful. So again, these are the people who went and said, always, this is the way forward. You can never do anything else but listen to us. And they were only ever wrong. And we're only now finding out, or at least I think some people are becoming a little bit more enlightened, that these people really don't know fuck all. The only reason they ever get in front of a camera and tell you what to do is because it benefits them in one way. Either it furthers their position of power through votes, through a political move, or it's just directly lining their pockets through kickbacks and royalties from the whatever industry they're going up and supporting. War being another great one. The only way to ensure our democracy here is safe is by bombing children in the Middle East for Israel and nuking people in rowboats in the sea for Europe trade routes. Similar concept, right? Be cognizant of that whenever someone speaks in always and never. You let that sort of be a red flag. I hate using terminology like that. However, let it be something that sort of perks your ears up. Let it sort of just draw your attention and allow you to poke and prod and dig a little bit deeper in the individual who are saying things like that, who are using dogma to sort of further their agenda or their plan or whatever it is they're pushing, right? Because I think the more you poke and prod, the more you will find that that individual is probably less than qualified to be teaching you or standing in front of you in the first place. And furthermore, beyond just using it as a tool to vet, where you're getting your information from, even though that is extremely valuable, if you adopt that mentality, if you let always and never, that dogma sort of be, your compass or the framework in which you approach things, one, you end up in the crazy state that society is today, where it's simply red versus blue. And there's no in between. There's no room for nuance or debate. You just hate one thing because they're not your thing. And you miss out on a lot of the awesome and the interesting and the cool things in life, right? Like, that's one thing that I always said. Like, when I was in, I'm going to use this example, as corny as it is. I don't know why this is the first one that came to mind, but when I was in the dating pool, when I had first moved to a new city, when I had completely sort of restarting my life, um, politics is obviously a huge question for that comes up while you are going through the chats and the first dates and getting to know somebody. And every time I would tell people, I don't really care about that, and it's not. I don't need to justify that. I just don't give a shit about that, right? It's not, I don't care about red or blue. I think they're both pieces of shit, but I don't really care about whatever the person's belief is across from me, right? So long as they're not trying to enslave me or harm me in any way. Because if I do let just, someone's fealty or affiliation or preference towards one side of the aisle based on a political belief completely determine my thought and my outlook on that person, I'm completely shutting myself off to over half the population or the half the eligible, people that I could be dating or surrounding myself with, right? And I missed out on a lot of really cool and interesting perspectives and opportunities. And the same applies, I think, for everything. If you allow this sort of binary, this dogma, always or never sort of thought approach to life or to anything, so like, for example, if you are someone who's like what is a less controversial topic in our sphere that I can use here, you should only ever buy American red dots. We'll start with that. And as controversial as that take is, or the opposite or the opposition of that, argument may be, I would say that HoloSun has a much better reputation than SIG optics right now. And then the argument to that would be, well, they're no longer made in America. They're probably made in India. You get the point. SIG's an American brand. HoloSun's a Chinese brand. However, HoloSun optics have a much better reputation for being a little more durable and affordable and just all around better than SIG red dots, right? So if you completely shut yourself off to the opportunity to buy HoloSun, yeah, sure, you're cutting out Olight and Osight and all the other, grifting horseshit Chinese Amazon brands, but you also miss out on the great products that HoloSun is making. I'm not paid by HoloSun or SIG, obviously, for that matter, just using it as an example. If someone says you don't need a plate carrier, you should never, buy a plate carrier, you're realistically only ever going to need a chest rig at most. And while for the most part, I pray that may be an accurate statement for the majority of individuals, to not have body armor, to not have a plate carrier, and they're not trained with it, you miss out on having that capability that a very, very small percent of the population, let alone a civilian population, is ever going to have. And I think there's great value in that, right? So yes, while it may, from strictly looking at a dollars invested standpoint, the chest rig for most of us may be the obvious answer. But again, only looking at the financial investment and the likelihood of something ever happening and the use case being applied and how you use it to train, the training available, et cetera, et cetera. Sure. But again, you're missing out on an incredible capability and incredible opportunity to have, another thing to keep yourself, your family, your home, whatever it may be, safe. That again isn't going to be available to everyone. And those are just some examples. And so every time I see someone saying always or never, you should never use X, Y, and Z, you should never do A, B, C, you should always do et cetera, I always go, you likely have never stepped outside. You likely have never seen an alternative viewpoint or opened yourself up to somebody else who has an alternative viewpoint to sort of challenge that and see that maybe your side is a little bit flawed. And maybe theirs is too, but the sort of blending of concepts and ideas and of people and perspectives allow things to evolve and to grow. But if you live in this always and never, you will never be challenged. You'll never challenge yourself, and you will never be open to a potential better solution to whatever problem, to whatever setting that you're in. So that was an idea that I was toying around because it came up a couple times. I'm not really sure where I saw it or why, and I bring this up because you have to sometimes speak in these binary always and never and very polarizing terms online. One, because you need to get the clicks. That's how you make a living. I get that. And two, you do need to speak plainly because by and large, the people online are simpletons. They're idiots. You got to speak simple for simple people. I understand that. However, I would like to think that the people operating in our sphere, the people that are going out and taking classes and doing research and diving deep, are a little higher thinking than most, I would hope. Again, you are now operating life-saving and life-taking equipment. I would think you are a little more engaged than the majority of the population, by evidence that you are taking part in a little bit of a higher thought exercise than brain rot's content creation, if you will. But still, it's something that I have been trained to look for, that sticks out for me, that causes me to poke and prod a little bit deeper. And I try not to let it immediately shut me off from listening and learning from the person, because you can still listen and then you can learn from anyone, even if they are completely 100% wrong about everything that comes out of their mouth. You can still learn about what they're saying and that person, right? You can learn what not to do, what not to be. But I think, as again, everyone has a podcast now. Guilty as charged, obviously. Everyone can have a voice on social media. And like politicians, a lot of the times the people who gain popularity, the people who gain the most views, the people who gain the most money off of content creation aren't the smartest, aren't the most qualified to be telling you what to think. But again, it's important that they have the ability to do so. Obviously, the marketplace of ideas needs ideas and voices to share those ideas. But and I'm not calling anyone out. Not what I'm doing. I don't have a particular individual or page or anything to call out here. I'm simply saying that dogma should be that red flag. The always and never should be that. It should cause you to be skeptical of the source of the information and the information itself, and just drive you to be a little more questioning, and just a little more cautious as you move forward, digesting such information. So I'll leave it there. I feel like I've sort of rounded out that concept, that idea well enough. I do have to get packing though here soon. I'm finally going to shoot that hilarious pump shotgun that I posted a couple months ago. It's a Mossberg 500, which I think has the shorter magazine tube, with the 590 barrel and magazine tube, which sort of extends it out. Did that strictly so I can put a bayonet on it. Obviously hilarious. Have a shitty rail on top. Got a primary arms red dot on that as well. And we're going to get out today and we're going to shoot some clays. This is not the shitty shotgun shootout. We are procrastinating that. Although it is sunny and like high 50s today, so it would have been a perfect day for that. We just got a lot of guys out of town. So this is just me and a couple other guys getting out there, just sort of having some fun, getting our shit together. So that should be good. I'm hoping. I got the Ray-Ban smart glasses. As anti-AI as I am, they are turned off. The AI feature is turned off on these. I'll cover my ass there a little bit because I'm very anti-AI. Those are charged up, hoping to get some fun footage out there, blowing some plays apart. Ooh, some consumer advice. I'll start small. So I have an Axel Advanced Eclipse belt. I think it's called the Eclipse belt. Um, that's just what I ended. It looked interesting. It's very light. So I bought that used on TaxPop, God, months and months and months ago now. Been loving it, been beating it up. It's great. I love the belt. However, I have a True North Concepts MHA, the modular holster adapter for my Safariland retention holster that sits on there for my Glock. Everything on the belts, with the exception of the True North Concepts MHA, that's a mouthful, uh, has a hook backing that allows it to stick to the loop sort of inner like lining belt that goes around my pants. So what I do see happening throughout the day, even while I'm trying to put it on, it's sort of a pain around that True North Concepts MHA. If you ever used one or seen one, you can look it up, how it sort of mounts to a belt. There's like sort of these brackets with screws that hold it to the belt. However, there's no Velcro like hook backing on those sort of brackets. And so, because of the weight associated with that item compared to the other things on the belt, it hangs and tries to sort of pull itself off the belt. Uh, Cry Cowboy pointed me to, it's either Pharaoh or Spiritus, one of the two. I can't remember now. They sell an MHA sort of adapter, which has like, it's basically a tough piece of that sort of hook Velcro with, spaced out sort of screw holes that just sort of screws right in, and boom, you're good. I have so much 3M strips hanging around that I have used for various projects related to kit, that I just sort of used to the hook strips, screwed right through them, and it works just fine. Instead of paying the 20 plus, I think it's $20+ with shipping, to get a piece of Velcro in, you can just do that. No shade, no hate toward either of those companies. Obviously, it's going to look much cleaner. It's probably a higher quality Velcro field, that hook field, than just the 3M stuff that I used. I don't know. I'm just assuming it is. So I'm just throwing that there as an option for anyone trying to save a quick buck, because I'm always about that. The other thing, this goes much further than that. That is some real Jewish shit. Not Jewish, but you get it. Um, I've been in the market for a rolling hard case for all of my recording equipment, the 4 mics, the audio mixer, my laptop, all the cables, the chargers, everything that goes with it. As we know, if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of trying to find a case for your kit, it's expensive shit. And again, you want it to be a good case, as did I. So I've been on eBay, auction sites, marketplace, trying to find a gig case, a used Pelican case, an off-brand Pelican case, anything that will fit. Nothing's really working out well. My budget's, again, I'm trying. It's a used case. I'm not carrying guns in this. I'm just carrying like a laptop and some shit. Um, I wasn't trying to spend more than like $50, which is aggressive, I know. However, a little hack I found is that if you go on eBay and you look up the Pelican 9450, what the 9450 is, it is let me actually look it up so I don't get it wrong. The Pelican 9450 is the remote area lighting system. And if you look it up, you'll see that it is a Pelican case that is equipped to power sort of like an LED like square, like 3x3 sort of light bar like thing that it mounts right to the top of the case. The case plugs into like an AC thing, or it has a battery in it that plugs into the light. The light sort of extends up from the case, and you can use it to light. I'm assuming a crime scene, a staging area, whatever it is. Brand new, yeah, it's like $300, $1,200, depending on where you're buying it from or what accessories you get. However, If you find one beat to shit on eBay like I did, missing all of the lighting accessories and the power and all the foam that was inside of it, I got it for $30. And so I got it home. There's like a couple screws and things you got to pry off because it's designed to accommodate this remote area lighting thing, like the outlets for the light bar. Those pulled right after two screws, some metal plates on the inside that are used to sort of anchor the light bar that attached to the top of it. I pulled out. But again, I bought a Pelican case for $30. I then went on Amazon and bought Pelican 1510 padding because, again, the 9450, and I didn't explain this up front, is just a Pelican 1510, but it's designed for this lighting special purpose thing. So you can strip everything out of the 9450, buy Amazon padding for the 1510 for a couple bucks, chuck it in. You can also I bought like a lid organizer for all the cables and everything too for another 20-30 bucks. And boom, I'm basically at the budget of like 40-50 bucks for this stupid thing. And I just have to share it because I couldn't believe how I was, as I was doing more reading about the 9450, how the dimensions end up at the 1510. I was like, how has nobody heard of this? How have I never heard of this? So I'm just sharing that quick tidbit. Not many popped up on eBay. I only saw one at the time. But if you're struggling to find a Pelican case, specifically if you want one the size of a 1510 for whatever reason, try the 9450. You might find one for cheaper, and it's very easy to strip down. And it's literally just a 1510. So throwing that out there. I just read this, and I'll pull it up and throw it up as a visual for the folks who tune in and watch the video stuff. Not the not Ozturk, but someone who's arrested for sort of coordinating protests on a college campus was deported, and it looks like a federal New York judge, I want to say, ruled that it's totally cool to deport these people for protesting and sort of supporting Palestine, which is alarming. And I know I talked about this last episode, right? I'm assuming as I'm talking about these individuals, they are not conducting violence. They are not sending money to terrorist organizations. I'm operating under the assumption that they're strictly speaking out and sharing their disapproval for what the government that they pay taxes to is doing. The government that's supposed to represent them is doing. They're simply exercising their freedom of speech. That is the realm in which I'm operating as I'm speaking about these individuals. I'm not saying I support their cause necessarily. I'm not saying I support the opposite cause necessarily. I'm simply looking at the threat to freedom of speech and how the state is now just getting rid of some of the loudest voices using said freedom of speech to speak out against them. And with Ozturk and the example of this older gentleman, I believe I can't remember his name, who was just confirmed he's good to get kicked out of the country, that's an alarming precedent. I'm no legal expert. I'm not sure at what level of the legal system this was approved and what's going to sort of happen after and what's going to come of it. But again, this is something I'm going to watch very carefully. I know that the Trump, and I speak ill of the Trump administration. I speak ill of every administration. Again, I'm not naive enough to think that there's a difference between either political party. I hate them both equally. The Trump administration did roll back a Biden ruling, I think, about the zero tolerance policy as it relates to like FFL dealers and SOTs. That sort of allowed the Biden administration to completely take some of these folks out of business. So that's pretty cool. I'll admit, I'll sort of use that as like a feedback sandwich. There's some good news. That's positive. That's cool. Doesn't really do anything for us from a gun rights standpoint, though. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that. I am really zoning in on how your freedom of speech is sort of being encroached upon through this whole pretend guise of anti-Semitism, and how that's a good enough excuse now to kick people out of the country. Something that I would just watch for, because I think that's very interesting. Something that I don't really remember seeing happening before. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say about that. I'm not like nose down the news. I just caught a headline that said, that sort of shared the news about the judge saying that he's good to get booted from the country because of his involvement in the protests, I believe. Again, I'll I'll share the visual, and if there's any more details and context to that, I'll obviously share as well. I'll see if there's anything else going on with the Ozturk chick. And I say that's interesting and alarming because, well, obviously what I do here is do nothing but talk shit and ill will about the government and government officials. So I'm not an immigrant, obviously, but still, like, not super not cool, especially when one of the best friends and advisors to the president, and who has been given a tremendous amount of power through the president, owns a very large social media outlet and AI bot too. So something just to look out for. Reminder, because again, I just started this yesterday, and by started I mean I just had to reset my password because I forgot what it was. Taxes are due the 15th. That's right, the pedophiles in government need those taxes by Tuesday, I believe is what it is. So don't be late. They're going to do very important things with that money, like bomb brown children and people in the Middle East. Or file an extension, do whatever you got to do, I guess. But yeah, site's still open. Jerseys will be up for pre-order until the 30th, the end of the month. Then we're going to shut it down. Everything else is ready to ship, though. And I will happily send out, if you bought an item other than a jersey as well in your total order. If you'd like that to be shipped separately, just let me know. I'd be happy to set that up. Thank you to all who have supported, who have bought something, who have spread the word. Please continue to do so. I want to continue to do this. I want to continue giving away Benchmade knives or other really cool shit. Again, I have that Zenitco Pursed 1 sitting in a safe. It does work. It's been tested. It's very cool. Hoping to get some videos and pictures out of that. But I do want to make sure that I am like at a decent size before I start giving away stuff like that. But it is my intention to use that in a collaboration sort of format, working with a bigger brand, doing some really cool stuff. Because again, I don't just want to be giving away, shirts and patches. The slings was sort of a cool foray into something with a little more use case than clothes on your back and patches on your gear and whatnot. So slowly creeping into that. And again, I thank you to everyone who has supported and who's currently supporting and will continue to support, because it does not go missed. You guys are a very critical part. Even just listening, one listen to this goes a very long way. And I started out saying, if I don't make any money from this, I don't care. If I just sort of connect with one person who sort of vibes with what I'm saying, or maybe I can change someone's perspective through what I'm saying, it makes it all worth it. I'm nowhere near in the green in this. That's not the point. I didn't set out to make a fortune off this. I didn't set out to quit my day job for this, which is why I'm still hiding behind, a mask and a camera and whatnot. I do this for fun. I do this because I like it. And I do this because I want to do really cool shit with really cool people. So again, thank you all. Thank you for the continued support. And then until next week, stay metal. Oh, yeah.